everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into some absolutely chilling cases that will send shivers down your spine. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because these stories they're heavy. So let's get into it. Picture this. It's December 24th, 1952, and Carol Anne Dougherty is born to Frank and Dorothy Dougherty. Fast forward to October 22nd, 1962. Carol is just 9 years old, living with her family in Manor Circle, Bristol, Pennsylvania. She's got plans to meet her friends at the library. Nothing unusual, right? Just a regular day for a regular kid. But here's where it gets dark. Carol was a good kid, the kind who always stopped at St. Mark's Roman Catholic Church to say a prayer whenever she rode her bike past. She was even a fifth grader there. But on this particular day, that church would become the last place she'd ever be seen alive. When 4:30 rolls around and Carol isn't home, her parents start freaking out. Witnesses saw her riding past a local market, even stopping at Tommy's Cafe for a Coke and some penny candy. Normal kid stuff, you know? But she never made it to the library. At 6 p.m., her father Frank goes to the church to look for her. And what he finds, God, I can't even imagine. He discovers Carol's body on the landing leading to the choir loft. She'd been sexually assaulted and strangled to death around 3:35 that afternoon. Now here's the kicker. Investigators found pubic hairs clutched in Carol's hand. This little girl fought back, and she left them a clue that would eventually crack the case. But it would take 63 years. Enter William Schrader. This guy lived just a block and a half from the church on Lincoln Avenue. A witness saw him cutting through his backyard, acting all suspicious. Schrader had this distinctive scar on his face, and get this, he had a horrifying history of sexual violence against little girls that somehow nobody knew about. Oh, and they found a Lucky Strike cigarette at the church. Guess what brand Schrader smoked? Yep, Lucky Strike. When police questioned him, he said he was at work during the murder. Total lie. His time card showed he hadn't shown up to work for 3 days, starting the day of Carol's murder. But despite all this evidence, they couldn't nail him yet. So what does Schrader do? In January 1963, just 3 months after the murder, he bolts. Leaves Pennsylvania, runs to Florida, bounces around Texas and Louisiana, and finally settles in Houma, Louisiana. And the horror show doesn't stop there. This monster meets a woman through her adult son. They were both in a correctional facility together. Real winner, right? He marries this woman who has 2 daughters, both with special needs. And it gets worse. He starts abusing both of them sexually. One of them even has his child. And when that child turns 8, he starts abusing her too. They also adopted a 2-year-old girl and took in a 9-year-old neighbor named Catherine Smith. Schrader was sneaking into her bedroom at night. On Halloween 1970, Schrader gets into a fight with his wife and his stepson kicks him out. As he's leaving, he literally tells them, "I'm coming back and I'm going to burn the house down and kill everyone inside." And you know what? He actually does it. He goes to a gas station, buys gas, comes back, and sets the entire house on fire. Inside are his wife Audrey, her daughter Elizabeth, and 9-year-old Catherine Smith. Catherine had been locked in her room, probably by Schrader so he could get to her, and she dies in the fire. But here's the heartbreaking part. This 9-year-old hero saved her 2-year-old foster sister by placing her own body on top of her. The baby survived, but Catherine didn't make it. The fire officials suspected arson but couldn't prove it. Until 1985. That's when they finally indicted him for Catherine's murder. He got 21 years for manslaughter and arson. Throughout his life, this guy had assaulted nearly every female child or woman he'd ever had access to. His rap sheet was insane: attempted murder, assault, domestic violence, sexual assaults. He'd been violent his whole life, literally clubbing young girls in the face since he was 8 years old. In the 1990s, they tested those pubic hairs from Carol's case and found significant similarities to Schrader's. But it still wasn't enough. In 1994, a grand jury looked at the case, but Schrader and another suspect both passed polygraphs, so no indictment. Finally, in 2024, 62 years later, investigators interviewed Schrader's stepson. The stepson said Schrader had confessed to him twice that he murdered a little girl in a Pennsylvania church and killed her so she couldn't talk. A grand jury finally confirmed what everyone already knew. William Schrader murdered Carol Anne Dougherty. But here's the gut punch. Schrader died in 2002 at age 63 while serving time for Catherine Smith's murder. All they could do was close the case and give Carol's family some closure. Alright, let's move on to another tragic case. Cynthia Anne McKenna was born in December 1957. By 2007, she's 49 years old, living in apartment A9 at 242 Waterman Avenue in North Providence, Rhode Island. She's got a daughter named Jacqueline, and life is, well, it's about to take a horrific turn. In late February 2007, all communication with Cynthia just stops. The building manager notices something's off. He hasn't seen her in days, so he calls one of her family members who rushes over to check on her. What they find is absolutely nightmare fuel. Cynthia's body is tightly tucked under the bed linens with 2 pillows over her face. She died from asphyxiation after gagging on a sock that was stuffed in her mouth. They even found tissues stuffed in her nostrils. The building manager tells investigators that Cynthia had been dating this guy named Robert J. Corey Jr., who went by Gunner. But things had gotten so bad between them that the manager recently changed Cynthia's locks because they'd been fighting. When police question Corey, his alibi has massive holes in it, but they can't quite prove he did it beyond a reasonable doubt. Witnesses said they saw Cynthia get out of a silver pickup truck outside her apartment 3 days before her body was found, and nobody saw her again after that. During the investigation, 3 informants and 5 witnesses all said the same thing. Cynthia and Corey had a toxic, hostile relationship. There was domestic violence. Cynthia had filed charges against him. He owed her money. It was a mess. Then in 2007, investigators find letters Corey had written to an inmate at a correctional facility in Cranston. And in these letters, he confesses to the murder. A handwriting analysis confirms it's probably his writing. They tried to get DNA from the letters, but Corey wasn't in the database. So what do? They get creative. They reach out to a relative, find a bottle in the trash, and use genetic genealogy to confirm that Robert Corey killed Cynthia McKenna on or around February 19, 2007. But justice never served. Corey died in 2014 at age 52. Born February 15, 1960, Deborah Stone was 24 years old, sharing an apartment with a roommate on Hoffman Avenue in Cranston, Rhode Island. Everyone described her as outgoing and friendly, just a genuinely nice person. On August 29, 1984, she vanishes. For days later, September 2nd, someone finds her nude body in the Narrow River in Narragansett, Rhode Island. And the scene is disturbing. She's wrapped in a floral sleeping bag, tied with rope, and weighed down with a cement cinder block. Cause of death? Strangulation. Multiple witnesses said Deborah visited a man named Robert Jeremiah in Johnston the night of August 29th, and that was the last time anyone saw her alive. One informant tells police he actually saw Deborah in Jeremiah's apartment that night and later helped move her body from the apartment to the river on August 30th. Another witness said Jeremiah told her he had to kill Deborah because she was stealing from him. But here's the problem. Police didn't believe these informants at first because of their drug use and criminal records. Big mistake. When Jeremiah was questioned, he claimed Deborah took a cab to his apartment, tried to trade a black watch for drugs, and then he drove her back home around 11 p.m. He also started telling people Deborah had overdosed. But the medical examiner ruled that out because of the injuries to her neck or clear signs of strangulation. A friend of Deborah's stopped by Jeremiah's apartment around midnight on August 29th. An informant who went inside saw Deborah there and said she was staying the night with Jeremiah. This informant was terrified of Jeremiah because of his potential mafia ties, which investigators later confirmed were real. The guy was known for violent behavior and was involved in drug distribution. The informant said when he returned the next morning, he saw Deborah lying in Jeremiah's bed. When he found out about the murder later, he knew immediately Jeremiah was responsible. He said Deborah woke up, Jeremiah caught her stealing from him, and he strangled her to death. In September 1986, during a fourth interview, the informant finally admits the truth. He was the friend who helped Jeremiah dispose of the body. He said when he arrived at the apartment around midnight, Deborah was gagging and nodding off. He asked Jeremiah to help her, but Jeremiah said she'd be fine. When the informant returned the next morning, Jeremiah wouldn't let him inside. An hour later, Jeremiah showed up at his house asking for help with a problem. Inside the apartment, the informant found Deborah's lifeless body in the bathtub. Even though investigators had probable cause to arrest Robert Jeremiah, they never did. The case went cold. In 2019, they reopened it. In 2023, the Attorney General's Cold Case Unit got involved. They re-interviewed 32 witnesses, and even after all those years, everyone's stories stayed consistent. They finally had enough evidence to confirm Jeremiah killed Deborah. But guess what? He died of natural causes on May 23, 1995, at age 43. And the informant can't be charged because the statute of limitations ran out. Case officially closed on October 29, 2025. So there you have it, guys. 5 absolutely devastating cases. Some solved decades later, some where the killers died before facing justice. These stories remind us that evil is real, and it's closer than we think. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And as always, stay safe out there. See you in the next one.